Let's now look at how Snowflake is deployed and made available to the customers. Snowflake is hosted as a public cloud service. You can see here in the diagram, it's available on multiple cloud regions. Snowflake is available on all the three major cloud platforms, AWS, Google Cloud Platform, and Microsoft Azure. And as you can see here in the picture, it's available across continents in the globe. So North America, South America, Europe, Middle East. You can see two regions in India, one on AWS, one on Azure. Then Australia and rest of the Asia regions like Singapore, Indonesia, Japan, etc. So you can use Snowflake in one of these global regions made available on one of the cloud platforms. So the way Snowflake is made available to the customers is in form of Snowflake accounts, which are accessible as web URLs. So customer users log in into these URLs using the credentials backed up by single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, etc. We'll talk about those in detail later. Now, when you host data in Snowflake, it is hosted in or localized in a single region. So each Snowflake account is hosted in a single region. If you have datasets across multiple regions and would like to keep it that way, then you have to have a Snowflake account in each of those regions so that data is localized in the region. A single Snowflake account is not distributed across different regions, right? So it's localized in one region. The data, the compute and storage is localized to a particular region where Snowflake account is hosted. So Snowflake Platform is deployed as a multi-tenant deployment and then offered as a service in form of the Snowflake accounts to the customers. Now let's look at the different Snowflake editions in which you can consume this service, and these have different pricing implications, especially on the compute side. This is a page which talks about the pricing options in detail, and different cloud regions have different pricing. Here I have taken example of AWS Mumbai or India region for pricing example. You can see here the entry level edition is called standard edition, which is introductory, and this has all the core platform capabilities like elastic compute, automatic encryption of data, data sharing, storage compression, and basic time travel. So there are a lot of core capabilities built into the standard edition, and this also suffices for many organizations. The next one is enterprise, which adds up to the standard offering with certain additional features. For example, the time travel gets extended to 90 days. There is an ability to scale out with multi-cluster compute. You can have compute scaling out within a single compute warehouse. We'll talk about that in detail. There are more granular governance capabilities in terms of the policies which can be implemented to restrict access and so on. So all of these capabilities we will talk about in detail, and then there is also a matrix which clearly shows what are the differences between editions, which I will bring next. Business critical then adds up further on top of enterprise by adding in additional enhanced security capabilities like bring your own key, private link, failing over and failing back for disaster recovery and business continuity. So you can designate one account as a secondary which can then act as a DR, and then once the primary comes back you can fail back to it. Again, we will talk about this in detail. Finally, virtual private Snowflake, which is a very niche and high-end offering for very specific requirements where customers do not want to share the compute and be totally separate from rest of the Snowflake environment. This is hosted as a virtual private Snowflake where compute is dedicated, managed by Snowflake, but then not shared as a multi-tenant offering. So it's a single tenant offering. This is only available on a specific request and a very high-end offering for larger customers and contracts. Now, I was talking about a matrix which shows the difference between different Snowflake editions. Now, it's not possible to capture all of that in a slide. There is a detailed document URL which I have provided here, which shows what additional features the higher level editions bring into the picture. For example, you can see here that in terms of replication and failover, there are certain features which standard and enterprise do not provide. So this complete list is provided over here in the document. Now, the way Snowflake releases the new features as upgrades and updates is very regular releases. So there is a weekly release which Snowflake does. there are two planned or scheduled releases every week. There is a full release which has new features and capabilities, and then there is a patch release which has only quick fixes for specific requirements. Snowflake also introduces from time to time behavior changes, which means there are certain queries or outputs which may not match from the previous ones, as the new features provide certain behavior changes. Now, Snowflake informs about these behavior changes in advance. There is also a life cycle for these bundles which bring in behavior changes. The first month of this bundle is testing period, where you don't get enrolled automatically. Snowflake releases them and customers can opt in for testing. The next month, Snowflake enables these by default, and you can choose not to opt in. That's called an opt out period. So you can say, we do not want this to be enabled for another month or so. And then third month onwards, Snowflake makes these bundles available by default. Now, of course, these releases go through a very rigorous testing and validation process. Before they are deployed, there is a regular build testing, there is a continuous workload and performance testing, which Snowflake does internally in internal accounts, etc. This release process also follows a staged manner. So the first day is early access for certain designated accounts. So you can designate one of your accounts as an early access so that you can test out those features in that particular account. After that, Snowflake releases these for standard accounts, and then on the day two, Snowflake releases the features for rest of the accounts.